Hello, welcome, everybody. It is the RambleCast. Today is January 15th, 2025. I do not like that year. I want to. You know what? I'm just going to say it right now. I want to cancel my subscription to 2025. Could I get a refund on that? That'd be great. And I'm just hoping that I'm not past the expiration period on that trial. So, I'm your host, Cody Toombs, and with me, I have Corbin Davenport. So not the most exciting week. I guess unless you're, a Sonos employee that wasn't happy with the way things were going, in which case it's an awesome week, but well, I don't know. Insane, I think, is almost putting it too lightly. Um, After all, like basically you don't. Oh, now stupid thing. Okay, sorry. I forgot that this needs to be changed every damn time. Okay,
Hello.
you're live.
Cody finally uncensored me.
I did. You're no longer of the censored, though.
Also, you're apparently too quiet, Austin says.
Actually, the problem was Corbin's turned up a little too loud.
Oh, sorry.
um, yeah, no, and it's not your fault. It's just OBS settings are wonky. Okay, so hopefully that's all fixed, and if not, Austin will tell us. I hope. Um, but yeah, it's half of California is on fire. Um, there's there's even wackier stuff going on in politics, which we're just going to conveniently not get too deep into.
Well, we're
And
gonna get to it when it more directly intersects with the tech stuff. But yeah,
which yeah, 100% we're going to be getting to that. And to be fair, we are going to talk a little bit about that in just a bit, but um yeah, so oh, you added a link. Good. Let me slot that in right there. Good. Okay. But before we get into that stuff, we're I guess we're going to start with Microsoft no longer being the troll that it just naturally feels like being sorry.
yeah,
Um
okay.
yeah, I don't know why. But yeah, go ahead. Well, go ahead.
So the thing here was, Microsoft has famously done a lot of silly things to try to boost market share and usage of its Bing search engine and Edge web browser. It's pretty for years when you try to download Chrome through Edge, it's like begging you the entire way through to please reconsider your actions, which still feels illegal, but we kind of let that slide here. I don't know if they can get away with that in the EU or not. Um, Also in the EU, I think you just you get asked which web browser you want to use when you turn on the computer. I think that's how it works over there now. And same thing with Bing. Like if you search for Chrome and Bing, it'll flash big warning signs at you. More recently, I think it was Windows latest initially discovered that if you did a search for Google in Bing, like you went to Bing or you're typing in the search bar on Edge, but with its default search engine, and you type Google, instead of like showing you, the results for Google.com and Google services, it would actually just switch to a UI that looked a lot more like Google search. Uh, so There's a screenshot of it in the Verge article, and also I think in some Reddit. But yeah, like if you search for Google, it would actually change the layout pretty substantially, and it even added a like a second search bar in the middle, like to emulate like what the Google homepage looks like, where it has, you know, a lot more padding on the top and bottom with a big search bar in the middle, and even like a logo of like people in the same style that a Google Doodle often would. Um, this is just phishing. You're phishing. Like, okay, so when Microsoft does it, it's competition. But when people in Russia do it, it's a cybersecurity threat. That's how this works.
Yeah, yeah. I'm impressed with their brazenness. I will grant, in the smallest way possible, though, they did, Google does not own the literal style. You know,
Right.
not to say that that's really a defense, but they don't own the literal style of this. And popping up the company name as the first result is a sneaky way to put all the elements on screen while not actually having direct, like, imitation. Technically, calling this phishing would be wrong, technically, but for someone who's taking a quick glance, it's very
designed to trick people. So yeah. I like the only, like, I won't give them credit for like not breaking the law, because it feels like a low bar, but I will give them like 1% for the Bing logo and everything else staying at the very top. So like this would fool some people, but like they could have gotten away with more. I'm pretty sure that's not, you know, that's not a that shouldn't be the standard, but that's what they did. And a bunch of websites.
There is no Bing logo at the top.
There is on, I think that this, in this Verge article, they did scroll down a little bit, but if you click that Reddit link in the paragraph above it and you look at the original screenshot, it does have the normal Bing header at the top. So.
Oh yeah, okay.
But like it's
buried in a top bar where it doesn't look like it's really part of the page. It looks like it's more of a like functional settings or UI element. Oh, and I guess also at the top left. Sorry, I was looking at the Copilot icon, but yeah, I guess it is there at the top left. The smallest text there, practically.
Yeah, it's very silly. This stuff probably should be illegal, but we don't do that here.
Corporations are people. They have free speech, but they do not have laws.
So the Microsoft didn't comment on this when The Verge wrote it up, and then Microsoft quietly stopped doing this earlier. It was reported today that they stopped doing it. So now if I go to Bing.com and I search Google, they're still kind of doing it. If I go to Bing.com and I type in Google, there is no longer like a giant area that looks like the Google search, but they do put in a second search bar.
Oh wow, they really do.
So, like, does this happen for any, like, first of all, Bing's UI is horrific. Like, I think the mock Google UI was an improvement. What happens if I search for something that's not Google? I'm just gonna search, I don't know, The Incredibles. Yeah, so if I do that, I don't get the fake second search bar. So they're still they're still doing a little something. Yeah, Bing's UI is horrible. Why is there a second search button in the bottom right corner? Oh, it jumps to the top. Okay, whatever. But yeah, this is just like a information overload when I scroll this one. Anyway, so yeah, they stopped being as brazen about that. But of course, they're still pulling all the stops if you try to download Chrome through Edge, or if you try to change the default search engine in Edge, they'll quietly change it back to being after a while. Yeah, that was really funny. Where there was, I think it was last year or the year before, I tried using Edge as my main browser on Mac for like a week, and I was like, I don't really want to use like Chrome, but like Firefox doesn't work with everything. So is like Edge okay if I turn off literally everything? And the answer is no, because it will quietly turn back on the things you turned off unless it is enforced with a like IT department flag, which you can toggle, but when I do it on my system, it's not like locked. Like I as far as I could tell, you have to literally have like a computer enrolled in
it's a corporate policy.
Active Directory.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did not stay with Edge because that's crazy. But yeah, Edge would quietly change the new tab settings back, and it would change the search engine back, and it wouldn't like also sync like most of the stuff that I would have expected it to sync. So anyway, that's fun. So yeah, good job Microsoft keeping it classy.
Oh yeah. Well, what do you expect for a company that also pays people to use their search just outright?
It's so funny because like I don't think Bing is necessarily one of these, because again, like the default UI is horrible. But Microsoft has this issue where they do make good stuff sometimes, but then even that good stuff is ruined by all the like crazy stuff they put on top. Like I've said many times, I like 90% of the changes in Windows 11. It's mostly good, but then they pull all the extra stops that make it awful. So it's hard for me to recommend.
Yeah.
So yeah, good job, Bing.
Well, I don't use Windows 11, but I think I'm with you on most of that. Okay. I don't think I have anything else on this. Do you?
Nope.
All right. Well, let's see. Guess next we'll talk about going back to Venu or Venue. I'm not really sure how it's supposed to be pronounced, but the sports are still going to be as proprietary as ever.
Okay, so last week on the Ramble, and I checked that we did cover this. We talked about how Disney was like Disney and Fubo were kind of doing stuff, so Fubo would take over Hulu Live TV and then make a streaming service that's like all of Disney's sports stuff, and then Disney would own 70% of Fubo, and also Disney and Fubo stopped suing Disney because of what we'll get to, which is Venu Sports. So Venu Sports was supposed to be the streaming service from Disney, Fox Corp, the part of Fox Disney didn't buy, and Warner Bros. Discovery, which was supposed to put like all of the sports stuff that all of them own in one thing. So everyone who said for the past 15 years, like, we just want a Netflix but for sports, stop making us pay for cable, it was going to be that, and that was the pitch. And then Fubo sued them because they're like, wait a minute, we've been trying to do this for years, but you guys won't let us. And I think it was DirecTV was also, I don't know if they were in the lawsuit, but they were like supporting it. And I think maybe someone else, I don't remember. But after Disney and Fubo dropped the lawsuit, with Disney essentially paying for 70% of Fubo, all the companies announced that Venu Sports just won't happen. This press release from ESPN actually has the title "Venue Sports will be discontinued," but I don't know if you can say that if it never launched.
Yeah.
It just never it's vaporware. And they said the collective decision by the three companies not to move forward with the contemplated joint venture is effective immediately. After careful consideration, we have collectively agreed to discontinue the Venue Sports joint venture and not launch the streaming service. We determined that it was best to meet the evolving demands of sports fans by focusing on existing products and distribution channels. So then Venue Sports won't happen, and then yesterday there was a announcement from DirecTV that they're trying to do kind of that. They announced a DirecTV My Sports subscription, which they priced at $70 a month, which is a lot more than Vino, and that's basically like a cable subscription. And that's it's a lot of money, and it does have kind of all the usual sports and primary channels, NBC, Disney stuff, Fox. Right now it is missing CBS. I think they said they were working on that. But it is region locked, like it's not in all markets. And again, CBS is not in there right now. And importantly, this is also using like the local channels, if those are available there, and normal like cable channels. So this will be affected by the inevitable carriage disputes, just as a normal cable or satellite TV subscription would be, especially since they've got the local channels in there, which would be from like Sinclair Broadcasting and those kinds of companies that only exist. It should be really annoying. Like they don't, they just own like the local channels and the distribution for that. So this is gonna have like outages the same way normal TV has outages, because there's like like too many companies in between your TV or phone or whatever and whoever's broadcasting the sport. So I don't really know if this will make anyone all that thrilled. I'm not that much of a sports person, so I don't have too much insight here. I just think it's funny to watch this market, and I'm also honestly I'm pretty relieved that I never got like super hard into sports because paying for like 5 TV subscriptions to watch like all the games in a given sport sounds not fun. I'd rather not do that.
Well, like Kirby's saying right there, Fubo costs $115 a month. I mean,
is that I guess it's both the packages, because they have the, or am I, no, I'm thinking of Sling. What does Fubo do? Fubo TV. Because I know Sling has the thing where they have like the 2 packages that like kind of overlap with each other, but they have to do it that way because that's the most they can untangle the bundle.
Which in and of itself is ridiculous, but
Kirby, so she has the 4K sub with the regional sports fees. Okay. Yeah, it's a lot. I don't even pay for YouTube Premium right now because I think that's kind of a lot of money. I just leave the ads enabled, and that's a lot less than $100.
Yeah, I'm sticking with just YouTube Premium because there is enough YouTube watching that putting up with the ads would be kind of insane. And as much as I am never going to call out somebody for selling the high seas for movies and TV content, I do feel like a lot of the YouTube channels I watch, you know what, they deserve some money. And that's about as far as I'm willing to go.
Yeah, it's still a pretty good deal for everyone involved, which is why I get like really annoyed when people go absolutist on like YouTube will never show me an ad ever, and I will not
Yeah.
pay for premium because those people are everywhere, especially when YouTube was doing its last big ad blocker blocking.
Hmm.
Those people all got much louder and much more annoying. It's like Linux users on crack. It was really bad for a while.
God, can you imagine Linux users on crack? Ugh, they're already
Free
intolerable enough.
BSD users.
Um. Anyway, as I try to alienate the crowd that is used to being alienated. Um.
You can use Linux and be normal. It's hard, but it is possible. I know.
Yeah, it's a rumor.
You can choose to not be annoying on the internet. I believe in all of you.
Where did that? What the hell? Where'd that Finder window just go? Huh, that's weird. Yeah, so it is amusing to me that this is now becoming just a every few days thing as the story progresses. You'd think at some point they wouldn't be like throwing press releases or announcements anywhere without just getting their stuff sorted out, but at the same time, I guess the thing is, I don't think anyone really cares about this anymore. And I'm not saying that people wouldn't care in the sense of like having more competition, or they might have wanted to use one service over another for any particular reason. I think people absolutely care about that. The thing is, I think people have reached the point that nobody can follow this anymore. The changes are just happening so frequently and so often that unless you're actually watching for this stuff, you're never going to know what the story is. And like, imagine trying to read the news about this stuff without like actively following it. Every day you're going to read something different and say, oh, but I just read this other thing. You can search for it and literally find announcements that say different things are happening. So yeah, I don't know. I'm
Also, DirecTV might not be long for this world because they were trying to merge with Dish because neither of them really makes enough money with TV to be profitable. But Dish also now has a cell phone network connected to it and a couple hundred million, well, not 100 million, a couple million prepaid subscribers. So they were going to try to merge, but that didn't work out because of some debt thing. So yeah, DirecTV is still kind of struggling on its own. And even when you get even after you pay the $70 a month for your sports, it's still loaded with ads and increasingly just gambling.
Oh yeah.
Just nonstop sports gambling. That's always fun. Again, I'm so glad I never cared about this all that much. Like I got my antenna. I was able to watch a sizable amount of the Olympics and like a little bit of soccer, but for free. So I'm happy with that.
I'm just glad in general I'm not particularly interested in sports. Over the years, like I've watched a few football games when it's just kind of like an interesting time to do so. But other than that, like, yeah, never really got into it. Which, yeah, the closest I watch now is like a few esports, and that's stuff you watch on Twitch and don't have to pay for. And for the most part, you also don't even get a ton of ads outside of like maybe a couple that show up at the very beginning of a stream. So I can live with that. But yeah, to be honest, the way that everybody treats sports fans, gotta admit, I'm a little amazed that they put up with it. This might sound crazy, and I realize as I say this, it's actually kind of a brilliant idea that will never happen for obvious reasons. But yeah, the way they treat sports fans is kind of the way that terrible ISPs and power companies treat their and cable companies treat their customers. It's basically the worst possible treatment they can get away with, to the point that it should not even remotely be possible. And it's the sort of thing where eventually a lot of like towns have famously created like their own municipal companies to do power or ISPs or whatever. And at this stage, it would actually be kind of funny if some company, or sorry, some town were to say, you know what, we're just going to create our own municipal sports channel. Like everyone here can just get it for $15 a month. We're paying only what is the bare requirement for this, and we're going to negotiate something very aggressively that sort of forces them to give us a decent price. Obviously, that can't happen that easily, but at the same time, I wonder if there's a way it could. And also, imagine the hardcore sports fans, if they had any concept that they could be like, I don't want to say part owners of the team, because that is actually a concept that exists for a couple of teams. But imagine if all of the local sports fans for a particular team or group of teams got together and said, you know what, F you, we're all just going to actually like stop paying for anything. We're not going to go to your games. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. All because we want to negotiate a better deal. We want to negotiate something where we get to watch you. It's going to cost a reasonable price. And
the sports fan union.
Yes. Kirby,
Yeah, I mean,
assuming you're still there and listening, tell me you would not be into this. This should be 1000% up your alley. You should love this idea.
You have nothing to lose but your chains.
Yes.
Yeah, as I look at this Fubo homepage, where the cheapest option is $80 a month. This also, this kind of stuff does remind me every time I have to write something about like one of the big carriers, and their plans are just like the most indecipherable nonsense you've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the fact that all of them still get away with the thing where every commercial I've ever seen for AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile or whatever is like, join now for $25 a month, and then in the little text it's like, if you have a family of 8. Yeah, I don't know why that's, well, I do know why all this is still legal. But it's certainly annoying. I love capitalism so much. It's so fun. Yeah, so that's the TV stuff. Other news is TikTok might get banned in a couple days.
Yes,
so
closing in on the real ban.
Yeah, the deadline on the law that passed last year is that TikTok, or ByteDance, which is the Chinese company that owns TikTok, they would have to divest TikTok, or at least the part that exists in the United States, to a different company. They would have to sell it off, or it would get banned. And that the deadline for the ban is what date is Sunday?
The 20th. Or sorry,
okay.
Actually, wait, correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe, yeah, the ban is on the 19th. It's the day before Inauguration Day. So that the 19th is a Sunday. And according to TikTok, when the ban goes into effect, assuming it still does, um, the app will be off of all of the local stores. You won't be able to download the app anymore. Um, and you and for people who still have the app on their devices, what's going to happen is the app will not be auto deleted. However, according to TikTok, what will happen is it will redirect you to a website that explains the law. I'm sure explain is going to be a little bit air quotey here because they're definitely going to give their spin on it. But it will apparently explain the law, what it means, what the implications are, and I'm sure some sort of message about write your congressman. um, and yeah,
Yeah,
that'll
we're
be
going back to the carriage disputes. It's like you need to contact your local app provider and tell them you want the TikTok channel.
yes. David,
Uh,
well, it plenty of states have one.
hmm Yeah, so I, I I think the difficult thing here is I know a lot of people are like, oh, now's the time to get a VPN, and I saw some people were talking about like, there's already like guides on this, but I don't fully understand how this is supposed to be bypassed. Because like number one, you can't side load apps on iPhone, so I don't know what happens on I know TikTok has a web app, but my understanding is that the mobile web app is kind of just like a funnel to the app that no longer exists in the US. It does have a desktop web app, so I would assume you can access that with the VPN, or you could sideload the Android app if you have an Android device and use a VPN. But it doesn't seem like we know what's going to happen to US accounts. So if you're in the US and you made a TikTok account, I would assume they're still gonna lock that. I don't know. Because it doesn't seem like they're being like aggressive about bypassing this in the way we've seen from like I'm trying to think of examples. Like it seems like they're pretty stuck about like funneling everyone to that page that tells you how to like get your senator to knock it off. So I don't really know how this would be bypassed yet. I don't think we'll know until it actually happens. I would imagine like some combination of like making a new account through a VPN and then using it exclusively through the VPN might work. But also, if they're like any other big social media network, they're probably flagging all accounts that are made through a VPN as like spam bots. So I don't even know if that would work.
Okay, so I'm going to make a prediction on this notion of locking the US accounts. They're not going to do it. Period. And there is a very simple explanation for why. Let's say, hypothetically, you are a person living in the US and then you travel to Spain, just for example, where TikTok is not banned. At least I'm assuming Spain doesn't have a ban on TikTok. Why would your account be locked or banned? There is just no reason to lock those accounts. Well, I say no reason. There's maybe reasons to put some security on those accounts in the sense of like preventing them from getting hacked and taken over by other people. But there's no reason to prevent those accounts from actually being accessed entirely. Because one, you're creating more work for yourself as a company. In like customer service issues for people who do travel into other countries. And two, you're possibly preventing like traveling, like heavy duty travelers who are maybe very active on the platform. You're preventing them from being like still being part of the platform just because they let's say hypothetically made an account on while they were in the US, and then they might not even be US citizens. They could have just created their accounts here. What I would think is more of an issue is and Kirby, I think, kind of just wait, let's see. Oh no, okay, this isn't the same thing. But the other issue, or the bigger issue, is monetized accounts. I suspect that monetized accounts where they would be paying to the US, that's very possibly a different story. Those accounts, I'm assuming that they're going to keep paying those people out for a little while longer. But at a certain point, I imagine they will just stop paying those people because effectively they can't really operate from the US. And maybe that is actually part of the law. Maybe they would have to stop paying them out. I'm not really sure. But yeah, that could be a little bit more of an issue. And I think that's where things could get a lot more complicated, is if anyone, like, you could bypass the TikTok ban using a VPN. Fine. But what if you're a creator on the platform? At that stage, I mean, it's already going to be iffy in many ways, but would you really also be able to get paid out by the platform? Because getting paid out, you could certainly have them pay out to you in another country, but that is a really messy and very tiresome process. It
Well,
sucks.
luckily, TikTok doesn't pay anyone, so this is a very easy question.
Well, there is that, but
if they did, they could pay you in Bitcoin.
Fortunately, as companies go, TikTok is one of the few that actually has not made any sort of friendly movements towards Bitcoin.
Yeah, my understanding is that TikTok just has the general fund that big creators get a couple cents if they have a very popular video, and then everything else is well, they also have the commissions from the store thing in the app.
Yeah.
I guess that would be money that TikTok itself would be paying out, and then everything else is just sponsorships they set up themselves.
Yeah, that certainly not all, but most of the TikTok creators that make any decent money, it's through sponsorships and stuff like that, which is the same as YouTube. I mean, people are not making a whole lot off of YouTube ads anymore, unless your videos are routinely, reliably pulling 1 million plus views per video. Like every
this
video.
channel.
Yes, like this channel. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, most of the YouTubers out there, if they're Kirby, more on that later. But yeah, if you're trying to make money as a YouTuber, and your view counts are, let's say, 200K or less, you pretty much have to do that through sponsorships. Or you have to be very, maybe if you appeal to a very niche audience that's somehow worth very high paying ads, then sometimes you might still be able to make decent money, but that's the diminishing few. Anyway, so yeah. I think TikTok's account situation is probably going to be a little more complicated, but not too special.
And I'm also annoyed because I thought about all the people writing guides of how to access TikTok after it gets banned, where I'm like, you don't know how that works. We don't know how that works yet. Let's not a lot of it's just use it. Here's our VPN affiliate link. The Verge did write an article that says how to save videos from TikTok before the ban, which is good. That is useful. But they didn't explain how to use YouTube DLP, which is my favorite thing for using that, and it's free, unlike their first option. So I wish I would have thought about that and wrote my guide, but now I think it's a little bit too late for that.
I disagree. I think there is, I mean, the ban doesn't happen for 4 days.
Mm,
Depending on when it goes into effect, maybe that's 3 days. If you wrote it tonight, it's still got 2 days of viability.
yeah. Or I guess maybe if you combine that with the VPN, it would work in
Yeah.
a perpetuity, assuming they don't like hide all US uploaded content. I don't imagine they do that. That'd be kind of weird. Anyway, so yeah, I guess I should think about that.
But
Yeah, so the more recent news is that like Trump might do an executive order to delay it a little bit. There's speculation that TikTok, ByteDance has said over and over again, like, we're not going to sell it. But Trump and other government people seem to think like it's still a possibility. There was speculation that like it would be sold to Elon Musk, which I feel like is a long shot. Also, there was who's the Oracle guy that wanted to buy it the last
Larry
time we went
Ellison.
through this? Yeah, Larry Ellison talked about maybe buying it. I saw more recently Kevin O'Leary said he wanted to buy it. It's just like, all right, which billionaire outside of China will we make TikTok be sold to? But ByteDance has said like we're not going to do that because it's dumb. I do kind of see the angle that like maybe China, in an effort to resolve other issues, would like make ByteDance sell that part. I don't know. I'm not a political scientist, so I don't know what the likely options are here. But ByteDance has said over and over again, like, we're not doing that. And this is also a thing that like Congress could reverse at any time, because this was a law that went through Congress, and now we have a different Congress that has more Republicans in it. So if Trump wants it to happen, it probably wouldn't be that difficult to reverse it quickly. If it couldn't happen through executive orders, maybe it could, because I think we just let any like those be used for anything now.
Technically, executive orders, when they're actually handled the way they're supposed to be handled, allow officially speaking, they allow the president to interpret a law. So where there are vagaries in the law, an executive order allows for interpretation of them. And
also the fact that the group deciding if the executive orders are legal or not would be the Supreme Court, which doesn't really care about that anymore. So, what laws exist? It kind of just doesn't really matter at this point. It's just vibes.
Yeah, because executive orders, it's at this stage, I think, incredibly unclear what their function is, other than just president can make up whatever they want and pretend it's a law. Anyway, I don't know necessarily what it would take to reverse the ban, or more importantly, I don't think any one thing is the only way it can be done. I think it can basically be done by the courts if enough people just sort of ask the right way. It could be done by Congress. Of course, if it's done through Congress, the president has to sign it anyway. And it sounds like an executive order could possibly either delay it, possibly just delaying it indefinitely, or it could reverse it. We'll see. I do think it's interesting because this is strictly speaking kind of a poison pill for Trump, where he's walking in on day one, all of a sudden all these people are going to be without TikTok, and they're going to be kind of mad about it, and a whole bunch of them are going to look to him for an answer. And if he doesn't answer them the way they want, they'll be mad. And if he does answer them the way they want, then all of a sudden Congress can basically call him out for, hey, whatever happened to all those security issues that you yourself claimed TikTok had? So yeah, that's fun. I don't get me wrong. I kind of want to watch the popcorn of it, but I also don't like that this is happening at all.
Yeah, it's especially weird because both parties have gone back and forth on this. Because like the law to ban TikTok was bipartisan, I believe.
Yes.
And both parties were talking about how much of a security risk it was, but both of them were heavily using it for the election. Like, I think Joe Biden had an account he was posting to, or his people were posting to all the time. Trump had an account. A lot of Trump's family and related officials were posting on it. So I don't really know. This is so dumb. I would really like it if we could just get privacy laws that affect everyone. It's still pretty clear this is just because they're not an American company. Wouldn't be happening. We know it wouldn't be happening if it was a U.S. company, because they're doing exactly what Facebook has done for a decade and other apps. So good times. I love nationalism. I love wiping out all international competition. America must own everything. It's great. Works well.
Yeah.
So slightly less depressing though. Sort of related to this and related to Meta changing their policies and letting you just like say slurs. There's been a lot of migration waves again. I've seen on my Mastodon profile, I was following some people from Threads on there. I'm seeing a lot of, hey, go follow me on Blue Sky now. So it's really fun watching like those, hey, this social media website I was using is imploding, go find me on the other one. I love that happening every 3 months.
Yeah.
There's definitely that feels not good. But that's been happening. So because of the TikTok ban, because Meta is gonna be so much worse than it already was, there's more migration waves happening. Some of that is to the Fediverse. So Pixel Fed, which has been around for years, I've had an account for a long time. Pixel Fed is a social media platform that mostly clones Instagram's UI and experience, and it's been around for a long time, but more recently was when they finally got official mobile apps going. So that ended up being pretty good timing with this, and I put a link in our show notes to the Pixel Fed main developer, who posted that Pixel Fed was number 12 in the top free apps on the App Store, the Apple App Store. I don't know what region this was. I'm assuming US. I can check my App Store. But that's a huge deal. Not granted, Blue Sky is number 9 in that screenshot, but every time I've looked, a Mastodon app has not been in the top 100. So that is a much bigger wave of people to Pixel Fed, at least coming from mobile app stores, than we've seen with Mastodon lately. So I'm loading my app, see what's going on here. Apps, top free apps. Where is Pixel Fed? Pixel Fed is number 30 in mine. So I don't know what region that was, but it is lower on mine. Or this was posted. This was a couple hours ago they shared, so I'm not sure where. Yeah. And there's some people in the comments saying it's Number 27 on someone's Play Store free apps. In Italy, it was number 28, but Blue Sky is number 32. So pretty good. Pretty good. You know, I like seeing the migration waves to something connected to Fediverse, because PixelFed has been fully like ActivityPub federated for as long as it's existed, I believe. So if someone makes a PixelFed account, you can follow them from Mastodon and like reply to their posts, and they can reply back, and it shows up as comments on their post. So that's cool.
Yeah. Um, I am of the opinion that this is still probably not going to be the big grab. Like it's helping, it's bringing more people in, but I don't know that this is gonna be a long-standing thing. Largely, I think because my criticisms of the Mastodon and ActivityPub structure kind of remain. Uh, they're neat ideas. I like the ideas. I want them to be things, but the cost is something that I don't think people want to bear.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
eventually,
I mean,
eventually the hosts kind of have to eat those costs, or start shoving advertising or other pay structures in.
yeah. I think it was clear after last year that I don't think in its current form, ActivityPub or any kind of federated social media is going to be mainstream in the same way that Facebook and Instagram and Twitter have been. But I do think there's always going to be a space for it, and I do think that part is growing. Um, Mastodon, stopped having big migration waves a while ago. Like every time Twitter got, 5% worse, the 30 times that happened, a lot of the boost went to Blue Sky or Threads and not necessarily Mastodon. But Mastodon is still like it's still pretty popular. Like there's a lot of people there. It doesn't really it's definitely leaning towards more like tech people, but it's definitely not
Yeah.
exclusively that. Um, so I think there's always going to be a space for that, and the economics of that will keep changing. I don't know if PixelFed is like more efficient and cheaper to run than Mastodon. I'm not sure what their tech stack is like, but it would still have a lot of the same issues as Mastodon, where you have to worry about like servers blocking each other and a lot of cache content and stuff. So definitely not. I don't think it's going to displace any of the big apps. I think Blue Sky has coalesced and is officially the new Twitter. But there's always going to be a space for those side projects.
Yeah. Well, the furries need hobbies, so
It's true. There are a lot of people working on this stuff. I don't know if the PixelFed guy is a furry, but definitely a lot of
the
other devs and
Mastodon
admins
crowd
are.
certainly.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of them. Well, it has to be because you need to be an IT guy to run the server, and all
Exactly.
the IT guys are furries, so it's fine.
Not all, just like 80%,
Right, it's a lot.
which also coincidentally is basically just all of Portland's IT crowd.
Mhm.
Um, it's fun. So yeah. Anyway, uh, yeah, I certainly want to see this stuff succeed. Just I feel like at this point I'm the sober skeptic about it. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, PixelFed is nice because I do have an account. I tried using it for a little while after moving off um, Instagram like years ago, and I just had that as kind of like my photo dumping ground. But the compression was very aggressive, So I moved that thick part to Flickr, and that's what I use now for pictures that don't get uh, heavily compressed. So I don't really have a not really my thing, but I like that I can follow everyone who is going to use PixelFed on Mastodon, and it's fully transparent.
Yeah,
So yeah.
and admittedly, that's always been a bit of an issue with me. I Instagram was one of those social networks that it was never for me in the first place. Which, on and off, I actually sometimes take a lot of photos, sometimes I take very few. But I've never been the type who's like actively sharing a ton of them. So, my Instagram account, I like, granted, there was obviously other reasons why I stopped wanting to have any involvement with Instagram, but for a good number of years, I even wanted to post to Instagram and I never did. It just wasn't, it wasn't it didn't suit me and it didn't fit me. Plus, I always hated some of Instagram's dumb policy things, like not being able to put links into your post or stuff like that. Like, that's just dumb. They handicap the service too much. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I was a very early Instagram user, like in the first couple years that existed.
So
I
iPhone
remember,
days.
I remember using it in high school and a little bit earlier. And back then, again, I didn't really care about the compression because the phones I had it took garbage pictures, so Instagram wasn't really doing any damage there.
Yeah.
Um, and Instagram was kind of cool because it was still chronological feed, I believe.
Yep.
And one thing I did like is it had a tab. I know this got removed. I don't know if it ever returned. It did have a tab on my profile where it had a map with like little pins for all the
Yes.
pictures I took, and that was really cool when I went on trips and I could see all the pictures. And then that got removed at some point, and then like I didn't really care enough, so I deleted my Instagram. So
Yeah, it's funny how they started with all these features and then slowly but surely decided, no, features are a bad idea. Let's not have them.
yeah, um, yeah. So good times. Definitely gonna keep an eye on Pixel Fed and related things. 'Cause that's pretty cool. Uh, so the next thing is just super quick. I want to throw this in there because this is a Corbin exclusive. I don't think anyone ever covered this. Uh, but I covered it because I do look at all the new Chrome flags that get added and write about them when I have the chance. And one kind of interesting flag was a feature that Google was working on for Chrome called compact mode. And this would have shrunk like all the bars in Chrome. So on a laptop screen where you don't have a lot of vertical space, this would have given you a little bit more, which I'm a fan of because especially the current Chrome UI, it is very padded and takes up a lot of space. I was kind of looking forward to this like as a positive improvement because I don't really like the latest Chrome redesign. I think it looks kind of weird and out of place on Mac, especially. Windows, not so much because Windows doesn't have a consistent design anyway to ruin, so it's fine. But they were experimenting with it, and now it's gone. They ripped the code out. They said it was an experiment that they're not gonna keep working on. So
Hooray!
not gonna
We
happen.
won.
Yeah.
Um.
But they
Yeah.
decided on this one pretty quickly. I remember the thing I wrote about at Android Police was the Chrome Home flag, where it was the redesign where they moved the address bar to the bottom. And that was a flag for years. And that was like one of the ones that was so popular. It was like the main one that everyone who found out Chrome flags existed toggled. And that went through a bunch of redesigns and revisions, and then eventually they did cut it. And I remember the Android Police like those articles on AP got like 100 comments of people being like, "I am so upset. I love this design." People were not happy.
To be fair, commenters on Android Police were generally not happy.
Right. This time it made sense though, because
Yes.
it was a little bit weird that Google worked on a design for multiple years that didn't end up shipping.
They've done that a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
And that one, I think even got to the point where, if I remember correctly, they were testing it with like a small amount of normal browser users, so it wasn't entirely locked behind a flag. Um, this compact mode never got that far.
yeah, I I remember a lot of YouTube experiments like that. Since when I was doing teardowns of the YouTube app, I was constantly enabling and disabling various experiments, and oh boy, were there they had some wild stuff in there. And as far as I can tell, very little of it ever made it out into the daylight. Some of them did, but a lot of them were just super niche. And as far as I can tell, either internal tests or things that were only available for like maybe select experimental audiences or something. But yeah, they did like to do a lot of those.
Yeah, I don't know what happened where every browser kind of messed up, or every mainstream web browser made like all the UI look very weird. Because Chrome now doesn't really fit in with Mac anymore, and it kind of annoyed me to the point where I switched to Firefox. Um, Firefox has this really dumb design where the tabs are like floating buttons in a bigger bar, and I don't know why they do that. Safari doesn't do that, but I don't want to use Safari because it has like 5 extensions.
Well, and there's other reasons why Safari sucks.
Yeah, I could use Vivaldi, but that's like too much for me to want to deal with now.
Yeah, I have 5 browsers on my computer. Um, and yeah, that's definitely in the. I have more than I want. But I've got Chrome, Edge, Firefox, Safari, of course, and WaterFox. WaterFox is my VPN. Like everything goes through VPN browser.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, that yeah, it's I guess a thing. So yay.
Rest in peace, compact mode.
Yes. Well, speaking of exclusives, I guess that's the transition I'm grabbing out of this. There have been a bunch of exclusive leaks and news, and much like the Twitter ban, we have something else coming up very soon, presumably tomorrow, and that's going to be the Switch 2. So
Yep. Yeah, so there's a couple different sources that are saying the Switch 2 will be at least revealed tomorrow. There, might not be a full, video and explaining everything tomorrow, but some preview of it will be tomorrow, allegedly. So,
yeah, it would be kind of funny if this ends up being sort of like one of those Google Pixel reveals where they sort of just casually admit, "Oh, hey, we have this thing. We're just gonna we're gonna put it into the leaks and just show you the pictures of it, and we're gonna tell you just as much about it as we think is gonna get leaked and nothing more, and then we'll announce the actual thing in like 2 months." I don't know if that's what their plan is, but
I think it'd be really funny if they just said the Switch 2 is coming, and that's it.
Yeah.
You get a name.
That actually wouldn't be the worst idea.
Be funny, but yeah. So there's been a lot of leaks of the Switch 2. It seems like the design is basically going to be the same, but hopefully with significantly updated hardware, because the current Switch is still using basically the same Tegra X1 chip that the original Shield TV had. So it is very old. Um, every game on it is struggling at this point. Um, I've been kind of annoyed because I did like the Switch initially, but then there was a very clear drop off in what third party games were capable of. Um, and Nintendo's own games like are just kind of always $60 and never go on sale.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't really used my Switch at all the past like 2-ish years, which is a shame because it's a nice little device and the OLED screen on mine is very nice. But unfortunately, it doesn't have any good games, or at least the ones that I'm willing to gamble, $50 or $60 on. Um, Compared to my computer and Xbox, where I can get a lot of games on sale very often and play those. And also, I modded my Wii, so now I have an SSD connected to my Nintendo Wii that has every game I own on disc, plus a bunch more games I downloaded. So I've got those, which is really great, especially for GameCube games. I'm playing Legend of Zelda Wind Waker right now, which is a GameCube game. And almost all GameCube games are horrifically expensive used because no one bought a GameCube when it was new. So every game has I think like 5 discs were manufactured each. So like Wind Waker on eBay right now is like, I think when I looked, it was like $70 at a minimum. So now I'm downloading the ISO for that. I'm not doing that. So yeah, Diablo said good thing the Switch 2 will be backwards compatible. Yeah, that is something that Nintendo did confirm. Is that it will run Switch 1 games, which you would think that would be like the default behavior, but Nintendo's been kind of weird about that over the years. So wasn't for certain until they made it for certain.
Yes. So, yeah, I at this
And
stage,
my camera froze, Kirby said.
it doesn't look frozen on my screen.
Oh, she said it's back. Okay.
Okay.
False alarm.
Trump news. Um, so yeah, I never got a Switch. I like the idea of it. I think it's a certainly good idea. It was, you know, this is what certainly the market has wanted for a long time. Or always kind of wants is a portable system for gaming. Like that's been popular for ages. See Game Boy as example. Um, but yeah, just look, I wasn't interested in it for other reasons, but it was always plainly obvious that the hardware inside was just too low power. And that's fine to an extent. Like, look, stuff like the Playdate is comically low power, and it's popular within its specific crowd. But you kind of can't be a modern console when you're running hardware that really i- is over a decade out of date. Um, it granted, like major consoles, those typically last for close to a decade anyway, so by their end of life they're a decade out of date or near enough to it. But when the Switch was objectively like already behind when it came out, yeah, that's a bad place to be.
Yeah, it definitely got worse over time. Like I still think games like Mario Kart and Mario Galaxy on Switch look very good.
Mm-hmm.
And I the original Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, I think like it it had kind of a art style that managed the hardware that it was running on, because that was also supposed to be a Wii U game. And then it had the release on both Wii U and Switch. Um, and then it kind of got rougher and rougher from that point on. Like I saw, again, reason why I don't really play the Switch is Nintendo finally did a remaster of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, which is a game I really like. I played about half of it a long time ago, and I've been meaning to get back to it. It was a GameCube Mario RPG, and it finally got a re-release on the Switch, which is something I would be interested in. Except it's like 30 FPS on this, which granted it looks better than the GameCube version, but the GameCube version is 60, and of course it's like $40 or $50 or something. So I'm like, I'm not buying that, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kirby said Mario Odyssey. Yeah, Mario Odyssey, great Switch game. Bowser's Fury lag big time. Yeah, like it's just in that perfect center where it's like the games I do want are expensive and don't run that well. So I'd rather just play it on Xbox and do like, cloud streaming or local streaming if I want to play it in bed or something.
Yeah, and that shouldn't have to be the solution.
Oh, I said Mario Galaxy. Yeah, I meant Odyssey. Mario Galaxy is on Switch, but only the first one, and I don't think it was a graphical upgrade or anything, because it's that wasn't even a native port. That was a Wii emulator layer that they did for that game. So they ported Mario Galaxy to the Switch with an emulator, but also only the first one, and Mario Galaxy 2 is more fun. So again, they've messed up every opportunity for me to give them money, so I've not given them money.
Oh, for shame, Corbin. Why don't you give them all your monies?
Yeah. Small indie company Nintendo needs my money. I am on and off playing Mario Galaxy again on the Wii, though. It's still very fun. Yeah, Diablo said Sunshine was awesome, that package. Yeah, it was Sunshine, Mario 64, and Mario Galaxy, I believe. And that was also the package that Nintendo said was like a temporary like Mario anniversary thing. Like it was a re-release of a game that wasn't even supposed to be available for that long. I think it ended up being available for a long time, but why is that timed at all? It's Nintendo, man. I can't with them. I literally can't.
Well, to be fair, the last time I bought a Nintendo well, I guess I did buy the Wii. Sorry, I was about to say it's a different system, but so I had the Wii, which I barely used and didn't get a lot of games for, and prior to that, it was a Super Nintendo. So yeah, I haven't been the biggest fan of the company's product line.
I do have my my 3DS right here, so I do have this. Haven't played a ton on this recently, but it is still there. I've mostly been using it for web app development lately, because I do still have my image share web app that has a lot of 3DS and Wii U users.
Actually, now that you mention it, I think I do have a DS somewhere here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where.
Yeah, I have a DSi somewhere in the thing behind me. Kirby said 64 is still my number one Mario game. Odyssey is 2, Galaxy 3, Sunshine's 4, World is 5. Yeah, I did. Yeah, 3D World was pretty good. I did get that on Switch. It was pretty fun. It wasn't like blowing my mind, but it was fun. I've never gotten very far in 64 or Sunshine. I played like 3 levels of Sunshine, and I did not like it at all. Just the design felt really dated to me, and there was a lot of platforming involved that was just difficult, either because of poor game design or because I was stupid. It could very well be either of those things or both. But I didn't get far on that one. Super Mario World for the SNES. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've played a little bit of that. Not a lot though.
Yeah, I've played through that one a few times because of, the era. It was okay.
because it's you know I think the only Mario games I've ever gotten like very far or finished is Mario Galaxy, Mario Odyssey, Mario 3D Land and 3D World, and Galaxy 2. I think that's it. All the other ones I'd play for like an hour and be like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Oh, also, New Super Mario Bros. On the DS. That was great. That was a great game for like 11-year-old Corbin. That rocked.
Yeah, there was some. I'm not going to say that there weren't some good games. There were definitely some good Nintendo games, but look, I know various people are fans of different Zeldas, but I'll tell you, Link to the Past. That I still I still maintain that was basically peak Zelda. Um, but yeah, other than that, yeah, I just there. Oh, some of the Metroid games are also really good. Some, some.
I need to
Emphasis
play.
on some.
Yeah, I think I have a Metroid game downloaded to play later. One of the GameCube ones.
But yeah, I've always kind of struggled to like a lot of Nintendo's various other attempts at games, especially ironically a lot of the Mario games. I've liked some of them, but a lot of them just kind of started feeling a little too samey. But anyway, so yeah, Switch 2 in theory maybe tomorrow in some capacity. We'll see if that actually happens. Um okay, so let's see. On to our random discussion topic.
Sure. I don't really know what this means.
Yeah. Okay, so something occurred to me a few days ago, just an idle thought. And I know that this has kind of already been discussed a bit, but basically, Android Wear and Android TV both came out in 2014, officially speaking, and Android Auto came out in 2015. So we're effectively, I mean, we're not on the anniversaries of any of these; those happened during Google I/O, but we're effectively on the 10-year since these things existed. And it really struck me, it doesn't feel like they've had 10 years of progress. If anything, well, some of them I think it's forgivable. Some of them I think it's almost the exact opposite. They are almost in regression. But you know, you're a at this point you're an Apple Watch user, an iPhone user, but you've had Android Wear watches.
Many of them.
Yeah. I mean, in your opinion, do you think Android Wear is even remotely close to an Apple Watch at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, so the Apple Watch is so I have my Apple Watch over here. It's not on my arm at the moment. I had it on the charger. Um, I would say like for kind of how I use smartwatches and how I've always used smartwatches, which is like fun clocks and notifications and very basic health tracking. Like I'm not doing like any kind of crazy sports that needs like super advanced tracking. Basically always just like outdoor walks and running, or like sometimes treadmill stuff. I'm not doing anything crazy. I don't swim or anything.
Swimming is crazy.
Swimming is crazy.
It's that's how they used to check for witches, you know.
Right. Like so like kind of for what I need or what I use, I think and Wear OS has been fine for a long time. It's really just when you get into the weeds that Apple Watch still feels like a more well-built thing. I will preface this by saying I've not tried a Wear OS watch since I believe the Galaxy Watch 3 or 4. So it's been 2 or 3 years. I had whatever the first modern Samsung watch with Wear OS was, and then I think I traded it in and used the one after that for a little while, and then before I switched to iPhone. And I thought that was fine with Apple Watch. The health tracking still feels better. There isn't a divide between like Samsung's health tracking and Google's health tracking. They both do like half the functionality. And the app ecosystem seems to be a little bit better, but again, like I never really cared all that much about that.
Yeah, I think universally apps on watches are just not gonna happen.
Yeah, like even when I had the Samsung one, I just used the Samsung apps. I had my notifications, and then I would use the Samsung one for the ones you would click for health tracking, like starting a run or whatever. And the the Samsung Music app, when I would sync music to it to go on runs with earbuds without bringing my phone. It's like I'd use those, but not really any third-party apps. So I'm sure that mattered more for the people who are using like third-party health tracking stuff, and those I think ended up being better on one platform than the other for a while. But yeah, I Apple Watch is definitely like still a more I guess like maybe detailed is the right word. Like it's just more thought out. And it benefits from not having kind of a dual ecosystem thing that Wear OS has turned into. Kind of by necessity, because it was either this or Wear OS and Tizen remained collectively in distant second place.
Well, and you're kind of also leaving out Fitbit, which is its own tangential mess.
Yeah. So yeah, although Apple Watch is still weird in a couple ways, like they still don't have third-party watch faces.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Like you can customize the ones that Apple makes pretty extensively, but I do kind of wish there was more. Yeah, like mine's fine. I probably, if the Samsung Watch worked with iPhone, I probably wouldn't have got the Apple Watch. It's designed that way.
Yeah.
But it's fine. Again, mostly notifications and basic health tracking. I do wear the Apple Watch overnight, which is something I didn't really do with any Wear OS watches. But with this, it's kind of small enough, and I've got the Velcro band where it's not really like irritating to sleep with. But I'm mostly using that just to have an alarm that like physically vibrates my arm.
Mm-hmm.
So like if I had like more ear piercing bedside alarm, or like one of those things I've seen where it like shakes the mattress or whatever, like those would also work. So I do have like all the kind of overnight sleep data and the heart stuff, but I don't really look at that. And I've also found that the ability for the Apple Watch to tell when I'm sleeping or not is not very good. It doesn't really seem to know that. Like I've definitely had days where like I'll get up at a certain time, but then like stay in bed for too long because that's what you do. You open your phone and you scroll for too long without getting up, and Apple Watch does think I'm asleep sometimes through that, or sometimes they'll like correctly detect like, okay, I turned my phone screen on, so that means I'm awake, but like I'm definitely doing that while I'm still like in a zombie state. Like I'll I'll wake up early at like, you know, let's say like 7, and I'll look at my phone, half awake, like, what time is it? Oh, I don't need to wake up yet and go back to sleep. I'm still, like, barely conscious at that point, but it's still like, oh, you're awake, you're up. Um, but yeah, so I think Wear is probably fine, but I do think Apple Watch is still a little bit better. Um, yeah.
Weirdly, I just suddenly had an idea. Ooh, yes. I think I just had an idea for a nap. Okay.
I also did. It is also interesting to me that Wear OS has completely given up on being cross-platform over time. So I think it was Wear OS 4 that completely dropped iPhone support. I know it wasn't very good before that point, but it did exist. But like none of the Samsung Wear OS watches ever worked with iPhone, and I don't think any other ones have. Um, so that combined also with Fossil just completely giving up has been kind of interesting. So now it is like you have like 4 watches to choose from.
Yeah. Um and
Also, all of them are circles, and I do like with the Apple Watch, I do prefer the square because again, mine is mostly a notification slash reading, quickly reading whatever stupid email I just got, and square screen is better for that than round screen.
yes, I will always agree that a square screen is better as a functional thing, and a round screen is better for sort of cosmetic appeal. Um, or at least that's my opinion on it. I know some people differ on that, but they're wrong. Um, if you want something to look more like a classic watch, yes, there are squared off classic watches certainly, but they're fewer. Um, they that I think most people would agree is not the norm. Um, and just generally speaking, squared off screens tend to look a little bit more um either smartwatchy or I don't know, not really sure what word I want to use for it, but yeah, it's not the same thing. Like it just looks nicer when it's a round screen. Um, but
And that has also been like I think even more so than just the design, I think it has been like an important differentiating factor for Google throughout the platform's entire existence is like Apple will only sell you a square watch. We will
yes,
sell you both, and then increasingly it just became we'll sell you the one that Apple won't.
yeah, that's a little too fair. Um, and that's it, I don't want to say it's branding or anything quite like that, but yeah, it is definitely the thing that differentiates the two platforms. Um, and at this stage, I think it's reasonable to say there certainly are a few other differentiating platform or differentiators, sort of like Diablo made the joke that you only got the watch for Snoopy, but uh, Apple actually is doing those brand like crossover collab whatevers. They worked with Disney. They worked to get Snoopy on there. They've worked to put a few other recognizable things on there.
Yeah,
Whereas
there's Disney and Nike. There's a lot of Nike stuff.
uh, yes, Nike I think is a bit of a different sort of thing. Because I guess it is a little bit of a cosmetic thing, but that's more of a function thing because they've had Nike integration for a decade on all kinds of
Well,
stuff.
it's both. There are Nike watch faces that have like an extra button in them for like whatever their running thing is. I don't know. And then they do sell like Nike watch bands I don't think there is a like hardware SKU for like a Nike Apple Watch. I think it's just like they have a bundle with the custom bands.
Right, but what I mean is, like if you go back to the, was it the iPod Nano?
Yeah, yeah, they did have the little tracker thing with
Yeah,
Nike you put in your shoe. My mom had that.
yeah. So they've been doing stuff with Nike for a long time, and they've always had various relationships with Nike. So I think that's, like I said, I think that's a bit of a different thing. Um, just because they're so closely linked together. Um, but yeah, nevertheless, there's been all that. Kind of drifting back towards my original point here. Um, when I look at Wear OS, don't get me wrong. Obviously, it has had improvements over the years. Like, you can look at the Wear OS false starts as a good signal of this. Um, like the or the way that you installed apps. You used to have to install an app on your phone that had contained within it a mini APK that would be then installed by the system directly to your watch. You couldn't choose not to install this app. And if you didn't want to have an app installed on your phone, tough luck, because that's the only way you could get something installed to your watch. So you always ended up having two apps installed, whether you wanted them or not, which was always extremely stupid for watch faces. There was never a good reason to have an app installed on your phone for a watch face.
Right.
So yeah, all of that was really dumb. They eventually fixed those issues. And there's other things that they clearly did fix or improve over time. But the thing is, I look at where OS is today, and I can't help but think this feels like 4, maybe 5 years of progress at the most. It doesn't feel like something where my thinking is, oh, the company put real continuous effort into this thing. It's sort of like, and I'm going to hit on this in a minute, but it's sort of like Android TV, where at a certain point, Android TV wasn't getting yearly updates anymore. Like literally, it didn't even get the newest versions of Android every year. Instead, Android TV was just a thing that existed, and kind of, it felt like whenever they were interested in doing something, then somebody was sent out to the basement to unlock the Android TV code. They'd make their casual improvements, drag those out, send out an update to everyone, and then lock it back away for the next 2 to 3 years until they got interested in it again. And Wear has certainly been more active than that, but I think mostly because they've had more stuff to fix, not that they've added that much or improved that much. And
Yeah, like early Apple Watch was also very bad. My impression of it, I've not used it, but like all the apps were like terrible. They were a different architecture. I think all the early Apple Watch apps were like rendered on the iPhone and then streamed to the Apple Watch screen.
that's not quite how it worked, but it also was not as far off as you'd want to think. They were doing something. How to explain this? So it was sort of like it was sort of like how stuff works, or stuff used to work with notifications in Android, where basically you gave those watches you basically gave them instructions on what to render in terms of controls and where they belong. And then from that, the watch was then given a little bit of code to determine how to render. So it wasn't actually calling really into your own code to do the rendering. It was calling into code that you gave it, but it controlled, which it's hard to explain that. It's really weird. Kirby,
it's
good
just
point.
not real apps.
Yeah, and that eventually did change. You actually run real apps now, which is a necessary improvement. But yeah, I wouldn't say that it got good. It just got
and I did.
better.
Yeah, and I did also one thing I do miss from Wear OS is uh the design that Samsung had with Tizen, and they got mostly copied when they got merged with Wear OS, was the concept of having like widget type things on pages that you scroll between. That is nice. Like just being able to have like, here's my clock, and then I turn the little wheel a little bit, and then there's the weather, and I keep turning it to get to other stuff. It's definitely more clunky on Apple Watch. They've redesigned this a little bit now, where if you're on the main watch face and you kind of go down a page, there's like a stack of things. You can customize that list, but it's not quite the same thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess my point is, I for a company that came out with a product like Android Wear, and this is supposed to be a whole ecosystem. It's supposed to be competitive. It's even if Wear didn't make Google a dime, they still kind of should have it just as a competitive element against iPhone or against Apple. And if they're going to do that, they need to invest in it. And it feels like this is not an investment so much as a side project. And I don't think that's doing them any favors at this stage. Now,
well, I think the main difference ended up being that maybe Google more so than Apple definitely saw smartwatch as like the next smartphone, and it would take off in the same way, and it never did. And then they changed trajectories where Wear OS was definitely supposed to be like copying Android's model, but for wearables. Like we're gonna team up with a bunch of OEMs. The watches will work with all the major platforms, iPhone and Android, and it's gonna be great. And then it kind of just turned into it turned into more of an Apple Watch, where it's like, no, it's an accessory explicitly for our ecosystem. And also now Google is making like the primary hardware for it, because it's just it's Google, Samsung, and Mobvoi. Is there anyone else left making
honestly,
the watches?
I forgot Mobvoi was still doing it.
They're still doing it, but like everything else is like a custom real-time OS. Like that's what OnePlus is doing. Motorola, someone else, I can't remember. So Asus brought back the Zen watch, but it uses a custom thing as well.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't even realize that they still had the Zen watch.
I didn't either, and then I got it showed up in my RSS reader a month ago. I was like, wait, is there a new Zen watch? That's cool. Oh, it's not. It's like a real-time OS thing, and I think it's also round.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah,
I know you're not into round, but
no, I would like the square watch.
Yeah, I don't know. It again depends on what you want it for. I don't read emails on my watch that much. Like, I just usually need to see who did it come from, and maybe beyond the first hello is about the most I usually need to be able to see. And a round watch usually gets that across.
Yeah, the emails are nice for like login codes.
Okay,
that's mainly it for me.
I don't think I use that very often. Not from the watch. I usually just can reach for my phone and check what the code is. But yeah, I get it. So to me, I think, like I said, I think Android Wear, it's technically 10 and a half years old. At this stage, it probably, I think, should be further along than it is. Meanwhile, I look at Android TV, and it came out the same year. Like I said before, it has actually had far less attention given to it. But I actually am pretty okay with Android TV. Like, part of this is I think there's less to do in that space. Obviously, the next step would be to turn it into an actual like game console platform, but setting that aside, because I don't think they want to try to go down that road, not after Google has failed multiple times on games and is in the ramp up to fail again with some goggles. But yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with Android TV, or now I guess mostly just Google TV. This is a platform that there wasn't a lot to it. You basically just have to be able to run the apps that companies are going to make for their individual platforms, which unfortunately most of those companies make kind of crappy apps, but what are you gonna do? And then the rest of it just comes down to make a platform that has some pleasant enough animations, pleasant enough look to it, and that's kind of it, right? I mean, what do you use?
I've ever since I moved, I was using just whatever was built into my Samsung TV for a while, and then that started being too laggy. So I just use I use my Xbox for all media streaming stuff because it's thank you Hangouts or Mac. I just use the Xbox because it has all the streaming apps and it's my Blu-ray player. And I'm out of HDMI ports, so that's where all the streaming things are. I don't have a separate. I mean, I have like a Chrome. I have the not Google TV Chromecast, and I have like 3 Roku sticks, but they're not plugged in anything right now. I'd say like with Google TV, I am disappointed that it turned into another like smart TV content upselling thing. There's pretty common complaints of Google TV using things that could be interpreted as auto playing ads. I know it's like supposed to be based on what you're watching, but I don't know if that's always been true. And they are doing the thing where TVs can't use a different launcher, which has kind of created this other ecosystem of things that are based on Android TV but not. So TV manufacturers can go wild and do their own stuff. Like that was a thing that TiVo is now doing, is they have an OS that is Android TV but not, and there's some TVs being sold with that, and there might be 1 or 2 other ones, but yeah. So I guess I'm disappointed in that part, but also I've not used modern Android TV, Google TV really.
Okay.
So I don't have a strong take there.
So regarding the content upselling thing, look, I'm not going to fully disagree on this because anytime there are ads, it feels kind of annoying. And the way that they've attempted some of the advertising is also not great. Specifically, the problem there is you have a lot of or you have times where if the screen sits for too long, for example, on the home screen, then the current banner will decide, oh, okay, you know what, we're just going to start playing a trailer for something. Which, okay, yeah, that's not great. That's kind of annoying. But to be fair, if you're sitting on a screen for a long time, maybe that's in the category of who cares. That's all debatable. But yeah, at the same time, I also kind of look at content upselling as how I don't know that I want to say it this way, but it's also kind of the best way to say it. It's sort of like previews at the movie theater. You, it, if you're already there, and if nothing else is going on, like, okay, I kind of don't mind if someone's gonna put something there as like as an ad for other content, because that's the kind of ad that, while it has its problems, it's also sort of the thing that I want, or I'm more likely to think this is entertaining to watch or interesting to watch in some way. And certainly that's not always going to be the case, but it could be the case more often. And I do wish that those ads were a little bit more intelligent or tuned if they're going to be ads that autoplay. So, for example, kind of using the movie theater experience again, if I'm going to go see, let's say, a Marvel movie in the theater, what kind of ad do I want to see? Or what kind of previews do I want to see? I probably don't want to see a trailer for Human Centipede 3. I probably don't want to see a trailer. I mean, I might not be opposed to this, but I might not want to see a trailer for I'm drawing a blank on a sufficiently goofy rom-com, but let's just say Shallow Hal. I don't know why I'm picking that one, but it works. Yeah, I just probably don't want trailers for things that are completely wildly unrelated to the Marvel movie I'm about to see. I probably want trailers for a movie that feels like a Marvel movie. And so yeah, I want, if they're gonna shoehorn ads into it, then at least make them a little bit more on topic for stuff that I'm likely to watch. Which, yes, I know that's also basically saying, all right, can you start spying on what I'm watching more? Which has its own problems. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like there's a better way to do this. Or to do that. Otherwise, I don't mind it that much.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely the difference in TV software where it has shifted away from apps because it's not really the best way to organize and view this stuff.
Yes.
Like this is the thing that like Roku is still kind of doing apps, but they are moving towards a more unified interface, and Amazon and Google already do this, where it's definitely better to have kind of all the sources combined as much as you can, and it just takes you to the app when you're gonna go play the thing. And on a platform level, it is, I will say that it's nice that Google has a first party option for both Wear and TV, which is a thing they did not have for a very long time for both. So, you know, lowest imaginable bar, but they are meeting that now. Even though they still don't really have like a high-end TV box that I think some people would want. I know that the new one is better than the previous Chromecast where like you had to delete apps constantly, but it still doesn't seem ideal.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people not being fans of the Google TV streamer. And I didn't buy one. I'm not particularly interested in getting one because frankly, I look at it and I think, wow, my original Shield is still better than this. How is that possible?
This is the other thing where like my Xbox, look, it may eat like 50 watts while I have Disney Plus open because it's a gaming PC. But those apps are never lagging.
Yeah.
Like there's a very noticeable difference between like Hulu on the Xbox versus the Hulu app that tried to load on my Samsung TV. Now I don't have to use either because it's just in Disney Plus now. But that was by far the worst example.
Yeah. So, uh, I mean, as far as first party goes, I think the Pixel Watch is fine. Um, I
Yes,
I
it's fine.
like it. There's a lot I would improve, not least of which is I think that their proprietary band system is not working out super
Ban
wonderful.
Bans, and it's still, isn't it? Still $350. How
Yes,
much does it
but
cost?
trade-ins tend to be pretty generous. So once you're into that mess, then and like the first one I got for free, which actually I guess that was the number 2. My first one,
Yeah.
which was number 2, I got for free with as a with phone. And then for the Pixel Watch 3, I traded in the 2 and I got the 3 for very cheap. So, um, yeah, I mean that's not perfect, but it works out.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how low this goes. It is 300 on the Google store right now. It is $50 off, but like Apple Watches pretty routinely get under like around 200. Like I think I got mine for like 170 because it was on sale like kind of before the next model came out. Now I'm like 2 or 3 models out of date or whatever. But they're like iPads where like it doesn't really matter until it just stops working.
Yeah.
So I'm not really missing out on anything. Um, and they do have the Apple Watch SE now, but I don't know what's the price on that. $250. Okay. So yeah, not really different than the Pixel Watch. And the SE doesn't have always on display. That's like the main catch with it, which is like, what are we doing here? Wear OS had that a decade ago. Is it really that computationally or battery limiting?
And it's weird to me because I so I've never left, well, not I shouldn't say never, but I rarely leave always on display on. And when I say rarely, I think it's more that it's a thing that I've had on in the past, but it's been a pretty long time since I did that. I just, one, I kind of don't like it. Um and two, I don't feel the need for it, so I'd rather just have the battery life. Um I know one of these days, like once it becomes good enough, then yes, absolutely I want always on display. But I'm assuming like part of that is give me a display that dims down to the point that it's like pretty dark while it's doing that. And then I'll be happier with it. But yeah, I also agree like for people that want it, where the hell is it? Like it you can't make excuses for not having it. Um because technically speaking, I don't think there's any reason they shouldn't or can't have it. Maybe I don't know, but I haven't heard any good explanation for that.
Um, yeah, I don't have anything to add there. But yeah, so I haven't used Wear OS in a while, and I've not used a Android TV, Google TV thing in a lot longer. So I don't have any super educated takes other than what I've seen and what I've seen other people complain about.
Fair enough. And you do have Android Auto, right?
Yes, I didn't for most of the time. It would have been useful.
Yes.
Because my the first car I drove didn't even have a headphone jack. It had a cassette tape. I had to
Ooh,
use the infamous cassette tape to 3.5-inch adapters.
I hated
Um,
those.
Later, I got a Bluetooth one, which then you could do cool stuff with Tasker, using that as a trigger for it knowing when I'm driving. So that was kind of cool. And then I did get a 2014 2014 Nissan Leaf used, which to date is the worst financial decision I've made in my life. Because that car very rapidly degraded in a way I didn't know was possible, and I traded it in and lost like most of its worth. Most of oh yeah, so that wasn't good. And that car also did not have Android Auto. It had a headphone jack, and I thought it would have Bluetooth audio, but it just had Bluetooth for calls, which is useless. So with that car, I ended up using actually something I reviewed at Android Police, which was that brief moment when Google made those Google Assistant like car cigarette lighter adapter things that had their own microphone and stuff. That worked pretty well. And then I did in 2021, I think, trade that in for a Hyundai Kona, which is my current car, and that does have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So I did use Auto for all the time I had an Android phone in the car, which was like a year and a half, 2 years, somewhere around there. And I did get the Motorola wireless adapter, so I could have wireless because it just had wired. So that was pretty nice. Although I ended up just kind of going back to the wired because it would take forever to pair, and a lot of my car trips were pretty quick. So like by the time it's paired, I'm like 3 minutes out from parking the car and leaving. So that ended up, or alternatively, I would be doing car trips so long where like I didn't really want my phone powering the wireless part and like killing its battery. So it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. I stuck to the wired auto. And then I got an iPhone, so I just use CarPlay. So I guess that out of these three is the one I have the most recent experience with and can directly compare it to the Apple one. So I'd say like Android Auto seems fine. Like it seems fine to the point where Apple and Google both decided that this shouldn't be used for things that aren't maps or like very basic notifications. So like it does those fine. So I don't really have an issue with it. I know the more recent ones have the crazier displays. We have like 2 apps. But I don't know if that needed like a bigger screen than mine has, because my car just has the kind of default like little 6-inch screen. I don't know if the 2 pane apps were ever enabled on those.
No. As
Okay.
far as I understand, it's purely tied to screen size, and basically, if the screen isn't large enough for it, it just won't do it.
Yeah, because every time I saw a demo of that, it was on like the cars with the much bigger entertainment screen things.
Yeah.
Or like the ones copying Tesla, which is like a TV screen on your center console, which scares me.
Yeah, so overall, to me, Android Auto, it was, first off, to be fair, it certainly has had changes, but I would say of the 3 platforms, it's changed the least. That being said, outside of some criticisms that I've had the whole time, which are more just implementation details, I think it was the closest to the right thing when it came out. And again, there are things that they stand to improve and do more with, but yeah, it's, I think, kind of in the right place, which is good. I don't know. I'm not sure what to add to that, but the one thing, or the one bonus to this is, of course, there's also Android Automotive, which became Google built-in. I hate that name. And we're basically probably going to see Android Auto dead in a few years as Automotive takes over.
Yeah, in new cars maybe, because there is this weird trend where car makers are wanting to do more of the OS and software part themselves, which is
Hmm.
maddening to me because this is a thing that's supposed to work for 10, 20 years longer, ideally, and I don't want to have a 10-year-old version of Android hooked up to a network. Uh, like the 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 design model of Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, where the car is just a dumb touchscreen, seems like by far the best option to me. But this is kind of inevitable for the same reason that like smart TVs were inevitable. Is like, yeah, Toyota and like Nissan and Ford would really like all of your data and to monetize all of this and make it their own thing.
So I'll certainly agree with you on I don't like that it's a bunch of or I don't like the idea of an outdated version of Android running inside my car. That being said,
Right.
I'm also driving a Honda that if you knew a little bit about how to bypass the infotainment system, you can find that it is in fact running Android 4.3. I think it was. Maybe it was
Oh, that's perfect.
4.1.
That was peak Android. What?
Hmm. But yeah, it was definitely in the Android 4 point something era, and I don't think it
Mhm.
was even 4.4. It wasn't KitKat. So yeah, it was. Yeah, that's not great. Um, this is already a known problem. Um, why is my watch suddenly tripping out?
It hurt. It
Great.
hurt.
Yeah,
Talk
great
about us.
time for it to or a great time to be having this discussion. Um, I'll just try rebooting it. It hasn't been rebooted in forever. Uh, so yeah, I find myself kind of wondering if Android Automotive is the right solution for something like this. It's kind of messy when you get looking at obviously the different issues that can come with something that's built in. I've suggested many times in the past, and I like this idea, though I don't think it's ever really going to become standard. But I really just want I want that part to be physically replaceable with a standard unit. And by that I mean let me basically replace the SoC uh and maybe a couple of other relatively common components, and the rest of it can all belong to the OEMs. And by OEM I mean the car manufacturer if they insist on it. But let there be a physically replaceable SoC that can update and have uh to be able to take advantage of new things in the OS, to be able to take advantage of new software capabilities. Um, because oh my god, I don't want that to be the thing that drags down a car. I wouldn't want to look at buying, not that I'm, jumping at buying old cars, but I also would like to, let's say hypothetically, one day resell a car that has Android Automotive in it. And I don't like the idea that someone's going to look at it and go, "Oh, this is running automotive in it and it's 6 years old. Man, this thing won't get updates. It's going to be dog slow cuz that was a problem with this generation." And, at that point, a car that might actually have, let's hypothetically say, very few miles on it, could otherwise be in great condition. Someone's going to be like, "Yeah, but the infotainment system sucks." That's awful. That should not be the new reason why a car cannot cannot be useful to people.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this with smart TVs over and over again. Like, there just needs to be a little card that you put in the TV, and that has all the smart stuff on it. You can take it out and replace it when it gets old and crappy. but that can't happen because capitalism is the way it is. So we're just kind of repeating the thing where, a bunch of cars in the 2000s had like shitty Windows CE builds that got slow and had like weird security issues. Uh, so yeah, I'm not looking forward to whenever I need to get a different car, because I have a feeling that whatever I'll feel comfortable affording will probably be like what was new 2 years ago or something, and that was like the peak thing. Like car makers are just now moving out of the space. We're like, wait a minute, copying Tesla and having this giant touchscreen was a bad idea. So we're gonna peel back on that. But that's gonna be the used car market for me and a lot of other people. So it's like, great, I get the stupid touchscreen where I have to press the screen 5 times to turn my AC off. Um, yeah, Diablo said the key fob thing. Yeah, I don't think my car was ever affected, but it was like other Hyundai cars, uh, where you could just like unlock the car remotely. Hopefully that's not my car. Please don't break into my car. I need that. Um, I don't want to replace it right now. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, cars have always had, well, maybe not always, but for a long time, cars have had kind of some goofy, like almost anti-security to them. Um, just as an example, and I know I've told this story a few times, but years ago when I worked at Dell, for the very short few months that I did, um, I one day had finished up my shift and I headed out to the parking lot, and I go towards, or I climb into my car, and I use my key to unlock the door. I climb in, and within a second or two of getting in, my immediate thought is, this doesn't feel right. And I look around and it's like, where's my stuff? And it took a few more seconds, and then I realized, this ain't my car. I just got into a car using my key, and it's not my car. Yeah, turns out, because like every auto manufacturer out there, keys are not unique.
Mm-hmm.
And this was slightly preceding the days when there was like the laser cut keys that had more uniqueness to them, or the ones that had chips inside that had added security features, and so on and so forth. Like, that stuff came a little later, not much later. I think that stuff was actually within the last year or so of when I got my car. But or that car, that's a previous model. But yeah, the mere fact that was a thing that could happen, like, okay, fine, it can happen, but then not only did it happen in a small town of relatively low population, with two cars that happened to be painted the same color, which was an uncommon color. Like that, the number of coincidences starts racking up a whole lot, and they're both parked in the same parking lot. That's getting weird and shouldn't happen, but it does, or it did. Obviously these days I think the odds of this are lower, but they're probably not entirely gone, at least not with physical keys. And you never know what companies might have kind of like low security standards in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, I think these are problems that still maybe need a little bit of solving. Yeah, cars are not as secure as they probably should be.
Yeah. I will say, using Apple CarPlay, it is basically the same. Like, some of the general interactions are a little bit different, but it's the same concept. I will say CarPlay does seem smoother than Android Auto ever was in the same car.
Yeah,
But
their
like,
animations are better.
yeah, like it's still like not really that big of a difference. Um, and it functionally works the same where like you can't really have apps. You can have like apps that use one of a handful of templates. And there's no like, video playback or anything crazy like that. I guess that would be my wish for CarPlay and Auto is the Android Automotive is getting to the point where it does have media apps and more cars are having those media apps, but they are set up in a way where they only work if the car is parked. I guess that would be my kind of wish with Auto and CarPlay is like some version of that also makes it to those interfaces. Um, it wouldn't really be, or at least with like EVs. I guess maybe that's part of the problem. I don't know if the type of the car is really exposed through Android Auto and Apple CarPlay if they could detect that. Because like I don't know if it would be a good idea to encourage people with gas powered cars to, keep them running for, you know, 40 minutes part, just so they can watch, Netflix on the screen. But like something more that exists in the current version would be kind of cool.
Um, yeah, I think I get your example, but I think that depends a bit on like the vehicle, what kind of batteries it's got, or even how many batteries it has, because some vehicles do have multiple batteries in them. And hey, if you don't mind letting one of your batteries run down to empty, you absolutely could sit there for 40 minutes and watch Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can see that being a thing. I think the state of the vehicle is something that can be shared through Android or to Android Auto, but I don't know how many vehicles do it, because they can use the I don't remember what it's called, but it's basically kind of like it's sort of like a personal area network that exists within the car. It's how all the different components in the car communicate with each other. That I don't see why, like they can transmit a lot of stuff, and Android Auto is hooked into it. It's just limited in how much data it can get. So I don't know. That would actually be an interesting thing to know. Not that we'd ever be able to really use it, but it'd be interesting to know. And I imagine they could do more with that. I just don't know that they will, or if they'll get that information from the manufacturers, even if they did do something with it.
Yeah, because I know I want to say this is for both CarPlay and Auto. I know with EVs, I think both systems have hooked it up where if your phone is connected to an EV and you're sharing your location, like the state of the car's battery is included in the like person interface along with the battery of the phone. I don't know if it's just one or both have done that, but yeah, something like that would be cool. Kerry said I got a new Jeep last year. My sister took my 2020 Jeep. I'm so glad I didn't get the 4XE model. The hybrid one has been recalled a good amount. Yeah, I Jeeps are not for me. That's not me. I like my car being at least like 5% aerodynamic.
Yeah.
My Kona might not be the coolest car ever, but it's like 4 or 5 years old now. Still gets like 40 miles to the gallon on the highway. I think that's pretty cool, especially considering it's not really a sedan. It's like a mini SUV thing.
Yeah, and I'm very much in the same boat where I don't have any particular interest. Well, don't get me wrong. Like there are times where I might want something like a Jeep for, going going up mountains or going into areas where my
Right.
car just realistically isn't gonna go. I don't know
Right,
if you
because
do that too
you
much,
live
but
you live far out from society.
that's not actually the reason. It's more because well, just using a example that I can't help but think about. Couple of years ago, I think it was about 2 years ago now, maybe it was 3. I was reviewing a drone, and I had a very specific idea for a cool thing that I wanted to do with it. And sure enough, it was probably not the right kind of, well, I know it was not the right time of year for this. It seemed like it would have been, but it unfortunately wasn't. But I went driving up to this mountain, to this what would have been a really cool spot for a drone shot, and it was a pretty long drive. I did this in my car, and normally I would think, yay, gas mileage saved. Problem was, I got to within like 4 or 5 miles of where I was going, and it just so turned out that it was in the shadow of the mountain, and the snow that had melted from everywhere else in the entire state, it seems, had not melted from this one road.
Nice.
And oh boy, I looked at it. The distance I would have had to drive over snow was practically nothing, but it was still deep. It was still, or it wasn't even that deep, but it was deep enough that my car was not going to make that without getting stuck. So I ended up having to turn back, even though it wouldn't have been that far, but I didn't have the time to walk the rest of the way, since there was also going to be some walking and hiking involved in the rest of the trip. And yeah, so the entire trip ended up being a complete wash, which sucks, but it is what it is.
It sucks, but you are not one of the many people who look at like water covering a road and think like, I can make that, and then they do not make that.
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't do a little bit of digging to get back out, but
Right.
but I was not stupid about it.
Right.
Yeah, I just tested a little bit to see how my car would be able to handle the snow, and it's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna get stuck for real. So yeah, I had to just move a little bit of snow out of the way of a couple tires and got back out easily enough. But yeah, it sucked. And for that, like, I could see there were clearly tracks from Jeeps or trucks that had gone through the snow prior to that. So I know vehicles were getting in and out, but yeah, a Jeep would have been nice for that trip. And I do that, or I go to places that would benefit from this once in a while. Would it justify having a Jeep? Hell no. I'm not going to own a Jeep for that. But, it is a thing. I could benefit from it.
Yeah, we don't really get snow, or we
Well,
did
you
get
do.
snow. Well, yeah, I got snow a couple days ago, but it was like a tiny little bit, and the roads were fine after like a day. But like, to give you an idea of how much off-roading I'm doing, I'm pretty sure my car has all-wheel drive, but I don't know how to use it, and I've not used it. It just has not ever come up.
Right.
So, I think it's there if I need it. So far, I've not needed it. And we don't do snow tires or anything like that down here. So
We definitely do them here, just not. It's not a necessity every year. And for that matter, I wouldn't even say it's worth doing most of the time. But depending on how far you have to drive when you go out, and if you live in the city versus like living outside the city, it changes how much it's worth getting snow tires or anything like that. And David saying you didn't want to be made fun of. Let's be honest. No, I could live with being made fun of a little bit. What I wasn't prepared to do is at relatively late in the afternoon, getting stuck up on a mountain where I would have had to walk a few hours into the night just to go get help if my car got stuck, because, by the way, there was also no cell signal. And alternatively, I didn't want to spend the night hanging out in my car hoping that someone would come along and help me out. Like, trust me, this was very much a not wanting the worst outcomes up there. That was 100% the reason. Also, supposedly, there are bears in that area, so encountering a bear would also not be ideal.
Yeah, that sounds generally not ideal.
But
Also,
yeah,
we don't. I think we have. I don't think we have bears down here either. I've never seen a bear. We have many deer. We do have those. We have
yeah.
some like wolves and coyotes. Those are not. You probably don't want to be around those. Or they wouldn't eat you, but they eat other things that are you wouldn't want eaten.
Well, coyotes eat, well, yeah, obviously they do. But coyotes generally aren't too threatening to people as long as you don't catch them in like a pack.
Yeah.
Wolves alone 100% can be very threatening to people. Do not mess around with them. But yeah, and bears alone can sometimes just be scared off by loud noise. Bears near cubs, you should probably just start planning. Just start planning how you're going to let them eat you. You may as well just flavor yourself in advance. It's the better strategy.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, Android Auto.
Yes. All right. So
I have no more thoughts.
Yeah, I'm done here too. Okay, so if you want to take off, you can. I'm just gonna spend like, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes talking about the DJI Flip, and that'll be about it.
Yeah, I saw this and I edited the article about this, but I don't care. So I will leave now because I need food.
Okay,
So
that's understandable.
So goodbye, everyone. Please don't get eaten by bears. That is, if you learn one thing from here, that should be it. Do not get eaten by bears.
Yes, and you know what? I was gonna make another joke. I'm not going to because it's not appropriate. Anyway, so take it easy. Is there anything you'd like to pitch or plug?
No, not really.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Later. All right. I'll pop into this view. Okay, so as some of you may have, if you watch or pay any attention to drone news, you may have heard of or noticed this little guy popping up. Gotta get used to the fact this isn't mirrored. So yeah, this is the DJI Flip. It has been heavily rumored for the last few weeks, actually probably now going into a couple of months. And it is DJI's new kind of quirky, weird, unusual drone. Let's see. So if you've seen or paid any attention to it, the wings of this thing basically flip out like this. As you open the wings, it auto turns itself on, which is, if you're familiar with DJI drones, it's actually kind of an unusual thing. And basically, it is kind of a lot like a it's ugly. It's not a pretty drone. But to be fair, I wouldn't say most of the drones were that pretty. You know, just objectively speaking, they're fine, but they're not. They're not exactly gorgeous works of art. That said, yeah, this is just uglier than them. But this has The Verge compares it to spokes. I guess they're kind of like spokes. Uh, but hey, awesome. um, but yeah, this it's an interesting drone. What's kind of most interesting about it is this is basically the DJI Neo blown up to the size of a DJI Mini, roughly. Uh, it has a lot of the same features as the Neo. So like if you go look at my review for the Neo, basically like it has all the same social features. You can press and hold a button on one side of it that basically allows it to take off from your hand and perform some sort of pre-programmed maneuvers. And depending on what mode it is, well, actually, I guess all of those. What it'll then do is allows you to put your hand underneath it, and it will then land in your hand. So you don't need a controller for some of these things. You don't need to even use your phone for some of it, though you should. You should pretty much all if you're gonna let this thing do any sort of autonomous stuff, always have your phone handy. Um, my review will in fact include a moment where uh, that was pretty useful. That I had or it could have been useful to have my phone attached. Just to get to tell the story, I put it into what's called rocket mode. Rocket mode, the drone flies up from your hand, then it flies up and over your head and goes straight up and points the camera straight down at you. Well, somehow it got a little confused, and when it came came down only part way. It didn't come down far enough that it like it was in front of me anymore. It just came down like halfway. And fortunately, I'm tall enough that I could just stick my hand straight up in the air and it recognized my palm just barely. It was enough that it's like, okay, I'll land. But if it hadn't been for that, I would have had to use my phone to connect to it in order to get the drone to lower down. Otherwise, it would have just hovered there until it ran out of battery. Which is a funny and kind of dumb error for it to make, but it happens. Otherwise, yeah, it's a pretty neat little drone. It does good. It's pretty good. I wouldn't say that the image quality is as good as it's not as good as like the Mini 4 Pro, but it's probably on par with the Mini 4. At least from what I've seen of it. Otherwise, yeah, it's neat. I like it. It's also terrible at wind resistance. That I think is actually really notable is this thing gets blown around really easy. I took it up on a mountain a few days ago, and because of the shape of that mountain, it's a little prone to wind. Not all the time, certainly. It's usually not that windy. It's where I go for a lot of my drone stuff. But this particular day, the wind picked up a bit. I wouldn't say it was like heavy wind at first. There was just kind of a breeze, and I could already feel that the drone was struggling to fly certain directions into the wind. And then as the wind was picking up more and more, it suddenly got really quickly like, yeah, I need to land this now and get out of here. Because it's not going to work out well if I don't.
Aircraft will power off in 5 seconds. Press any button on aircraft to cancel.
Yeah, and so I mentioned earlier that when you open the wings, it turns on automatically. For the entire review period, if you close the wings afterwards, it would not auto turn off, but they released a firmware update right before launch that added the ability added detection for closing the wings, and now it auto turns off. I kind of wish it didn't do the verbal announcement every time because it's sort of loud and annoying, but it is what it is. Anyway, yeah. So, official review is coming for this pretty shortly. It would have been, I would have had a review out on announcement day, but I don't know that anyone's watching Oregon weather. I doubt most of you are, but it has been rainy and awful as can be here. So I have not had time to take this out and actually fly it until basically the last week. So yeah, it happens. Anyway, does anyone have questions about this drone thus far? Because happy to answer. Let's see. Trying to think if there was anything else that was particularly special or unique. Let's see. I think it's running the exact same software as the DJI Neo, so it has the same features, with a very notable exception. The DJI Neo, you could actually use the FPV goggles and motion controller to fly it. For reasons I cannot fathom, you can't do that with this one. It allows all the other control modes, but not FPV stuff, which is kind of strange. This also supports, or sorry, this also has, as I'm sure it was, obvious from seeing this, it also has a physical, like the spokes around this, and it has a physical like bumper around the propeller. So this could run into walls. It could, it could technically run into you, and it's perfectly safe. Or not perfectly safe, but it's safer. The odds of you wrecking yourself by holding a hand near a propeller are way, way reduced. But that being said, yeah, you can 100% get your finger between these spokes, so be careful. Do I know anything about the geofencing stuff? So, yeah, the recent news was that DJI has removed the hard locks on geofencing. So, basically what it lets you do is you can now fly or it took away the restrictions that prevented you from doing stupid things like fly your drone into an airport or over like the White House or anything like that. This is, I think, an ill-conceived idea. I think what they should have done is keep the restrictions in place for certain types of stuff, like the ones I just gave examples of. You shouldn't be able to fly this into an airport. You shouldn't be able to fly. Well, actually, sorry. You know what? I take that kind of back. Let me come back to the airports, but you shouldn't be able to fly your drone over the White House. There you go. Period. That one's easy. There are certain places where drones are just categorically off limits. You should not be able to fly them in certain places. And while, well, okay. The thing is, I can think of exceptions to almost every rule where I would say you should never be able to fly a drone in certain places. Airports, it sounds like a thing you should never fly your drone into. Obviously, people are going to say time and time again, it's madness to fly a drone into an airport. But the thing is, the thing they're thinking of when they say that is they're thinking of like LaGuardia. They're thinking of big international airports, or even normal like local airports where they're having, planes flying in every day, several dozens, maybe hundreds, who knows, maybe thousands per day. That's not all airports. There are some airports like I don't know the name of it, but there is one registered. I know where it's technically at. And I have driven past it pretty much all my life in Oregon. Um, to call it an airport would be comedy, because right now, as far as I can tell, the grass growing on the runway is taller than most people. It has been for years. No plane has taken off from that airport in, I'm guessing, 20 years. I'm pretty sure the state of the runway was never suitable for anything other than like, uh, maybe like a very lightweight crop duster, because that's what it was always there for. It was registered as an airport so that the guy who lived there could fly his crop duster. Um, and he didn't want to drive out to an actual proper airport to take off from there. So yeah, this is a thing. He got it registered. It was officially registered. And for whatever reason, he maintained the registration on it so that it wouldn't fall out of official service, but he never maintained the actual runway. So it's an airport. And as a result, there were technically restrictions in that area. They changed that a while ago. They actually started separating airports based on more criteria. So this space actually eventually did get opened up for flight. But I'm sure there are other airports where that doesn't work. Anyway, so that's one example of where these kinds of restrictions were kind of dumb, because they didn't take into account that a lot of airports aren't actually airports anymore, or at least they're not functioning airports. Or you can tell just by knowing the area, oh yeah, this is a spot you probably are very, very safe flying in, because no one has ever taken off in a plane from here in the last decade. Like those kinds of things maybe you know about. There's other stuff where like getting permission to fly a drone in a given area is actually a possibility. There's an airport in the city that I live close to, Roseburg. This is a private airport. It is officially a private airport, period. It does not have public commercial flights going into or out of it. So it's basically just there. It's technically there for a few things, but it's basically just there for local people who own planes, or for the occasional person that wants to fly in and stop for, purposes. It's there for that and that alone. Every once in a while they do have like government specific things happening, but again, this is basically like chartered flights and stuff like that. So they have, I think on average, that airport has like 2 to 3 flights taking off or landing per day. That's it. And so if you ever wanted to get permission, you can absolutely get permission from the airport to fly a drone around. But you just have to contact them. And that system was, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. They added a new process for contacting airports. You can actually get, in many instances, you can get automated permission for flying in those spaces. So I've never done this myself, but yeah, a lot of times you can actually just get permission and fly around an airport or near an airport. I think even over an airport, as long as the tower knows it, is aware of it, and you've communicated with them that you're going to do it. And of course they've given you permission to do it. So yeah, this is all actually stuff you can kind of already do. So the geofencing restrictions that DJI just lifted, I think, are not the best idea, but they're also not the worst. I think that there was maybe a more strategic way that they could have done it, but taking the restrictions away does open up the gates for more irresponsible pilots to get into more trouble, but it also opens the gates for people who know what they're doing to just do the thing that they need to do safely without jumping through a billion hoops up front. So it's a mixed bag. And you think the FAA just wants to secure their funding? Yeah, there's probably a lot of that too. it's dumb, but it's painfully true. So yeah, anyway, let's see. I think that was about it. What else did I want to say about this, or was there anything else? Up to 75,000 per violation. Yeah, that checks out. Because yeah, that's basically free money for them, from drone pilots that are not smart enough to stay away from dangerous places. That being said, good luck on that. Just gonna say it. Good luck on that, because DJI is no longer collecting. This is something I realized or learned not too long ago. They're no longer maintaining their flight database. For those who've had a DJI drone and paid close enough attention, you might know that it used to be there was a system where, and you didn't have to do this, but it was kind of semi-automatic. All of your drone flights were recorded to DJI's system. So it was actually not that hard for them to technically look into it and figure out, oh, who was flying a drone in this airspace. Now drones do have transponders in them, and so they're a little bit more trackable, but not entirely trackable. And so unless a drone gets shot down or lands somewhere where it can be picked up, figuring out who it belongs to is kind of actually still tricky. So yeah, that's a thing. So yeah, catching anyone who's a violator is probably still not going to be the easiest thing in the world. Let's see. So yeah, that trying to think if there was any other interesting comments to be made about this thing. And oh wow, I see that The Verge in their post about this did a photo that is almost identical to one that I've shot. That's fun. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, like I said, I'll have the review up for this probably in about a week, give or take a couple days. But yeah. So far, I like it. I'm not in love with it. I think there are a few drawbacks to it, but it's good. I don't want to go so far as to say that this I'm not convinced yet that this is going to be DJI's new design for all drones. I think it's going to stay kind of a thing for lightweight drones, but I don't know. It's really hard to tell. I consider it slightly less portable than the old design, but in ways it's better, especially because it has the bumpers around the propellers and a cage protecting them, which if you flew any of the old drones, you know was one of their biggest problems or weaknesses. If you got even a little bit close to any wall or solid object, the first thing that you needed to do was just get away from it. Because, man, if the wind picked up and caused even the smallest amount of drift, if a branch just happened to sway a little wrong and catch a propeller, watches that drone flips upside down and goes tumbling to the ground. And that was bad times. So, I like the idea of there being some kind of prop guards on a drone. That said, I don't know. Maybe that's a short-lived thing. or maybe not. Sorry, not short-lived, but maybe that's a thing that won't make it to all their models. I have no idea, because it does cost in some wind resistance, and it also definitely costs them in battery life. But yeah, anyway, so that's pretty much everything I had to say about that at the moment. Again, like I said, review is forthcoming. So, and since I see no other questions, I'm just going to assume that that's as much as anyone really wanted to ask about it. All right. So that wraps up everything I had to say today, or I think it does. Let's see. Curvy did ask about surprise game stream. Not tonight. I'm going to get a little bit of stuff done, and that, at least that's kind of where my plan is at the moment. However, this weekend, of course, there will be game streams. Saturday, Sunday, as always. I will be streaming some Overwatch, some Marvel Rivals. I haven't totally given up on Fall Guys, I think, though I haven't played it in a few weeks now, so I don't know. Fall Guys might be out of the equation for good. We'll see. Yeah, I think that's about it. So, of course, I'd like to thank everyone for coming by, hanging out, being part of the conversation, popping off in chat. Y'all are awesome for that. And of course, double thanks go to supporters of the channel: Curvy Mermaid, Austin, Carson, David, Diablo. Y'all are awesome. And if anyone would like to support the channel, there are links down below to Cash App, Streamlabs, and Patreon. And let's see. So yeah, like I said, game streams this weekend, and I'll be back for RambleCast next week. But with that, I hope you all have an excellent rest of the week. And good luck on the forthcoming TikTok ban, the forthcoming inauguration, the presently going fires in California, which, okay, I know nobody in chat is in California, but you get the idea. Who knows what weird effects that's going to have. I don't know if this is true, but I just heard that apparently tax day has been pushed back to, I believe I heard May 1st, and this is because of the fires in California. So, yay, I guess. But anyway, have a good week, everyone, and I'll catch you in the next one. Good night, everybody.